Hello guys, welcome to another editing video by the boy Shingy. You already know what it is as usual, but welcome guys, welcome to another editing tutorial where I'll share you guys my editing process and my train of thought while editing. And yeah, no secrets, that's what I call it, no secrets. But if you have watched the previous episodes, you would know that this whole process in Epson Scan is very simple for me. I just want to achieve a flat image, which is what I like working off of, instead of getting all my colors right out of the whole program. So this makes it a lot easier for me to just work from a base layer, because I found that whenever I edit a flat image, I just get better colors when I saturate the image, and I just get more control over editing the whole entire image as a whole, even shadows and highlights. So what I usually look at is I usually look at the darkest point, and as well as I always look at the highlights to determine if I'm going to lower the highlights or deepen the shadows or whatever. And I also look at the midtones, which is what I'm adjusting right now. And in those midtones, I want to get something flat without losing details. So I want to get it at a most perfect level of like highlights and deep shadows. And yeah. So in importing, I use Bridge. Bridge allows me to import directly into Photoshop, and it has a cool plugin called Camera Raw. Camera Raw is pretty much what I call Lightroom without all the little details, like being able to save presets. I haven't really experimented with Camera Raw, so I don't know if I'm able to have presets, but that's not the matter. I just want to get the job done. So in this whole step in Camera Raw, I just want to get my base global, I call it, the base shadow and highlight detail more in depth from the flat negative scan. So I'm going to start adjusting the lights and the darks and the shadows and just work on the curve a little bit more. But again, this is just basic adjustments to get a base idea of how I want the photo to proceed. So right now what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the hair, and the hair is determining how deep my blacks are going to be and my shadows as well. As you can tell, I like using the whites tool to make my highlight adjustments over the highlight tool, because I think the highlight just does it on it's just too bright, and the white tool tones everything down. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up the levels layer, and I'm gonna change the levels layer to a luminosity adjustment. What this does, it allows me to edit every single RGB channel individually as shadows as opposed to as the actual color. And this allows me to just touch on midtones or like reds or the greens and all those other tones specifically in the photo, based off the channel itself and the presence of the color, I believe. And why am I using the levels layer? The levels layer is so much easier to make micro adjustments and make very in-depth adjustments, as you guys can see when I'm turning it on and off. And the other second tool that I'm going to be using is the Selective Color tool. This also allows me to specifically adjust different channels into the image, but right now I'm just going to use this to adjust my midtones and my highlights and do little minor color adjustments and color balancing to make the photo a little bit more balanced to my eye and what I prefer. So I usually go into my neutrals and my blacks as well, and my whites. So my whites are my highlights. So what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of cyan to my whites. That will complement the water as well as all the highlights. And I like doing this because natural colors of whenever you take any photo, there's actually natural blues. So all our natural highlights are blue, and that's why I like adding blue, especially when working with fair or white people. This makes it so much more true. And I don't want to add too much blue. I just want to make it so that the skin looks natural and everything sort of flows. So right now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to open up my color balance tool. This is the tool that I use when actually color balancing and selecting how I want my image to look. And because this is a swimsuit sort of natural photo, and because my model has a natural look, I want this photo to be as natural as possible. What I'm gonna try to do is pick natural colors that are naturally in the whole scene as well as in her skin tones. So that's why, as you guys can see in my midtones, I'm playing with the yellows and the reds because that's what I visually see. And I'll also adjust the greens because they are greens, and because I'm using the color balance tool, it doesn't take away a whole color. It doesn't act like a curves layer or levels layer where it totally takes away. It transitions the colors into the following color without taking the color completely out, which is very important. So if I have really bright reds, pushing it to cyan is not going to take all the reds out, but it's going to balance the levels between cyan and the reds. That's why I use the color balance tool. Selective color again, because now I'm starting to go more in depth with the color instead of trying to adjust the blacks, because I'm not yet there, but I'm gonna try to touch on it a bit. So I want to add a little bit more blues to the hair because I noticed that it was a little too much on the yellow side, and it's also going to complement the water. So those blues are going to feel really subtle, and because her skin tones are also really bright and on the yellower side, the image already sort of looks warm. So I don't need to make it warmer than it is. I just need to make it a little bit cooler to complement the whole entire image. So I'm gonna add a little bit more brighter whites. This is going to really level everything out and make it a perfect level between cold and warm because their skin tones are warm. And this is what I'm gonna group and make my color adjustment group pretty much, so that it's a lot easier. Let's say I want to change something, I could just go there in terms of colors. And as you guys can see right now, I made a copy of my background layer, which is the base layer. The reason why I do that is because it's very important that I have a base layer to come back to, just in case I make a bad adjustment I can't go back on. Because I am using a Wacom tablet, sometimes I might just do a stroke, and let's say my computer does not process it fast enough, that stroke will ruin the whole entire image. And sometimes it gets so bad you can't really go back on, and I don't want to keep going back because I'm doing such micro adjustments. Sometimes I just register the smallest things with just my pen, so it registers too much information, and it just makes it a lot easier if I have that base layer, if I make any big adjustments. While I'm editing, guys, I will touch on the fact that I use a Wacom tablet. A Wacom tablet is a tablet. It's like a little tablet that is the size of a mouse pad, and that tablet has a pressure sensitive pen. So this is very important for my retouching because, as you guys can see, the brush size itself is quite large, but when I do press down, it reacts to how hard I press down, and this helps a lot with making micro adjustments. And this also helps with opacity and how the brush will also react, as well as even the healing brush tool that I'm currently using. And I'm using the healing brush tool, guys, because it has improved so much over the years, which means it's not really going to make a bad job picking selections and replacing whatever I want to replace. And luckily I have a model with really good skin tones. I never really have to work on her skin. That's why you're not gonna see me work on the skin heavily on here. I'm barely gonna touch on the skin. I'm just fixing all the imperfections. But I'm going to use this time to just explain why you need a Wacom tablet, just like I have. And that's because it's so important. It's going to speed up your whole entire workflow if you're working on skin and working on people or portraits. It doesn't really have much of a purpose if you're doing things like street photography, things you don't really need to make perfect or make minuscule adjustments on. As you guys can see, I'm actually not clicking on specific tools. It's because I'm actually using shortcuts to get everything done. So Z is to zoom in and space is to grab and move my frame. So my fingers are literally on the space and the square and the Z. So as I get closer to finishing all the little imperfections and taking out all the dust particles, you're gonna notice I'm gonna do something called a stamp visible layer. On the right side, you're gonna notice a layer with everything. I click on the color, the top layer, top group in this case, and then I hit the stamp. I hit Shift, Control, Alt, E. That creates a base, pretty much a compressed layer of what you've done up to date. But it's important that you click on the top layer because it's going to register everything below that and put it all together. And the reason why I did this, guys, is because I want to just I like the point where I'm at because I feel like this is the whole image that I would like in terms of like perfect color, perfect levels. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to really work on the shadows. And what I just did, as you guys can see, I went on a curves layer and I pretty much darkened the whole image because I want to start adding some shadows and start pretty much enhancing certain details. So underneath her chin, underneath her body, underneath her tummy, underneath her everywhere that is pretty much dark and I want to enhance the darkness on is where I'm going to paint. So this is why I like using Photoshop as well, because as you guys can see on the right side of the curves layer, the layer is black, and what I did is I actually inverted it, and it was white before and I inverted it to black by hitting the invert button. And again, you could pause this part. I'm so sorry, but you could pause this part and then go back. But I pretty much inverted the whole layer, and now I'm painting with the brush white over the black, and that's what's gonna activate the effect. And if I want to remove the effect, I just add the black back into there. So as you guys might notice, I did the whole black tool again and then took out all the things that I did on the face because I want to do it more specifically to certain areas and enhance certain areas that I know need enhancements, something like the eyes. And this is gonna create a sharpening effect on all my photos, on the photo or on the dark parts, because when you add darkness or shadows or deeper shadows to any image, it actually sharpens the image or it adds depth. Long story short, it adds depth to the whole entire image. As you guys can see, I'm still using the brush, but this is the other cool thing about the Wacom tablet. Because I'm working on the face, I don't want the effect to be as harsh as the rest of the body. That's why I lowered the whole opacity and I'm no longer pressing as hard on my tablet, because on the face you want to make all of these adjustments very gradual. You don't want to make them too strong, because they will show and they will make a big difference. So I'm going to just gradually press down on the Wacom tablet, and this also will add a feathering effect. That's why you see me going down onto the arms as well. This is going to feather it and make it flow, as opposed to make it as harsh as it was before. And I'm going to do this, and this is sort of like a cheat code to dodging and burning. And the other reason why I'm doing this way, instead of just adding blacks or just saying, oh, darken the whole image and just add the blacks, is because I'm actually adding natural colors that are in the skin tone. So there's no such thing as a black in a photo, like a true black, a true black shadow. So this adds a natural look to the whole image, or a natural shadow to the image. Is what I'm doing right now is the opposite of what I was doing. So I'm gonna brighten the image to a really good point that I like, in terms of like the highlights where I want the effect to be. So primarily I want to do this in the eyes specifically. The eyes have to be full opacity, because the eyes are very important, and around the forehead and around the cheek area where it's clearly pretty bright, and around the hands I'm going to add this effect. But the eyes are very key, because the eyes is where people naturally gravitate towards. Like when they look at an image with a person, they naturally look at the eyes. And this is very important, because her eyes are really good. She has really beautiful hazel eyes, and I want that to stand out. So by making sure that the full opacity of the white is on the eyes are going to be the absolute brightest without looking not so natural. And again, this adds natural colors, so it's not going to be full white, it's actually natural colors of the skin. And you can see this by when I turn on and off the layer. I know this video is kind of lengthy, guys, and I'm trying to do this all in one take, so do bear with me, guys. Like, do bear with me. Right now, what I just added is just a brightness level. The whole image is practically done, and I want to saturate it a little bit more to get all those rich colors out, and also lower the vibrance. I like playing with the vibrancy tool, because it adds a different effect at the same time, because I want this to look as natural. A lot of these colors are too poppy. This will let me sort of determine the perfect level between good light as well as low saturation, because that's how we really truly see things. And this is my understanding of this as well. The exposure tool, and the exposure tool does a really good job of deepening the blacks. If I want to really do the blacks deeper, and I use a gamma correction, there's no train of thought to this. There's no actual like reasoning for this. I'm just doing it because that's how I know how to do it. That effect, instead of just adjusting the blacks and opening up the selective tool, I find that changing the gamma works a lot better, especially at the end. And right now I'm just playing with the vibrancy and the saturation, which is gonna be cool. So right now I'm just trying to find the perfect level. The photo is done at this point. I'm just trying to find the perfect tones I want. So I'm gonna keep playing with the saturation and the vibrance, but I think I'm gonna go for the saturation and lower the vibrancy a little bit. But yeah, and another cool thing that I just come to realize, guys, that you need to make sure you're working in the correct color space when you're doing this. You need to know your monitor. My monitor works in an sRGB color space, so that's a color space I'm making adjustments. There are multiple different color spaces, and you need to know how to have that set, because if you're working in a different color space than what your monitor is able to register, you're not seeing certain colors that might not even be present, or you're adjusting things you might not even see. So it's very important that you change your color space that you're working on right now. So the safest one that mostly is very common, even with printers and all that stuff, is the Adobe sRGB color space. It's really awesome. That's like the most universal color space. I kind of like keeping it there, and if I have a higher end monitor that has more color space options, I will use that one. But this just keeps it consistent across the whole entire board. And another thing, guys, to note is my thing is color calibrated. My monitor is color calibrated. This also affects your skin tones and how you see colors and your brightness and your exposures and all of that type of stuff. That's pretty much that, guys. I hope you guys love the video. It was really awesome. I really like this series because one thing that I really stand by, that I want to show and why I'm doing this, is that it's not necessarily you knowing the techniques. A lot of people know the techniques already, but they need to be more creative, and know the process a lot more. So by me being this transparent with everybody, it actually shows you that you could know my deepest secret, but if you don't know how to shoot like me, you will not get the same results as me. And that's very important, because it's going to show people that, yeah, you might know technical stuff, but there's such a huge part of photography, which is being creative and, planning a shoot, doing mood boards, planning a lot of stuff. So that's why I'm being very transparent with you guys and showing you the whole process, because no matter how many times I could show you, those that know themselves or see certain things in these videos could learn from it. And maybe I used a certain adjustment, and that adjustment could be something that you might have wanted to achieve on your own edit. So yeah, that's why I'm still doing these videos, because I think they're very helpful. But other than that, thank you guys again for tuning in. It's a boy Shingy. Hit the subscribe button if you're new, and also if you like the video, tell me if there's any other tools I could check out. I'd really love to know, and let me know if there's any other things that I could use, or any other ways to better achieve certain effects. I love learning from you guys as well. So yeah, that's pretty much that, guys. Thank you so much. It's a boy Shing again. Bye.